All right, all right, all right. There he is, the man, the myth, the legend that is David Furones. How are you feeling, baby? You feeling good?
I'm feeling good. Got through the biggest part of the offseason, so it's a little more relaxed until we get just these smaller things like rookie mini camp, the schedule release, OTAs eventually, mini camp, and then finally training camp, and it all starts over.
But the good thing is that this useless season that's coming up now, I now believe there's an end game to it. And it's kind of been developed right in front of you here over the last couple weeks here. You want to know what it is?
Tell me.
You want to know what's going to happen. Well, since they traded a fourth rounder for a third rounder in 2026, it's very interesting that you would do that with your asses on the line.
Right.
Or is it just ass on the line? So what I believe now, I'm starting to think this is where my conspiracy theory is going. I'm starting to think that Mike McDaniel wasn't a Chris Grier call, because if Chris Grier's ass is on the line, why? Not that the fourth rounder was going to save your ass anyways, but you did a very selfless thing for a person whose ass is on the line, because normally if your ass is on the line, you're creating cap space from other people. You're trading a pick for next year, this year. You're doing whatever you can to save your ass before you leave. He did none of that. He didn't really go out and seek future money from players, especially Tua. He didn't trade any future picks for right now. In fact, he did the reverse. He traded a pick now, which was an exceptional move, by the way. Excellent move, making the fourth rounder, third rounder. I thought it was fantastic because, again, whoever you drafted wasn't saving your season anyway. So, as I've been telling Dolphin fans that tell me all the time, oh, you got to get rid of this. They can't get rid of anybody. They're tied to it. They weren't going to get rid of Jalen Ramsey if Jalen Ramsey didn't tell them, hey, guys, F you, I want out. They don't want to get rid of Ramsey because they're going to lose $9 million in cap space. They can't get rid of Tyreek. They can't get rid of Tua. They can't get rid of anybody that people want to get rid of because they're tied to salaries. So you're tied to salaries that keep you stuck for the next year or two. You're hoping the Tua one is legit because you're hoping he figures it out, plays well, and then you can justify it. But if he doesn't and continues to do the stupid shit again and gets injured, then the following year, as you know, will probably be his last year because they need at least 2 more years. Okay. You also gave Mike McDaniel a new contract. So you're all sitting there, minus the coaches. I'm talking about front office and ownership. And you're all having a powwow. And you're going, yeah, this Mike McDaniel shit isn't working out. But we all know that we have Weaver in here, and that is a head coach that should be. Okay, we gave Mike a contract. Doesn't look good now. We know players don't want to play for him. We know that the situation. Let's give him an opportunity to sink or swim. If he doesn't sink or swim within the first half year, we move him, we put Weaver in place. That way we get our guy that we want, and we move forward, and we have another pick for next year and everything else. And we've given Mike all the opportunity, and, and he moves on. I think that's the plan. I think that's what's happening because they're stuck with these salaries for 2 years anyway. They already have a fantastic candidate in place as their defensive coordinator that you and I know and everybody else. If you go with your hunch, your gut, and you tell me, who do you want on that sideline? Who do you want in the media room? Who do you want, Weaver or McDaniel? Every one of us is going to take Weaver. Okay? So in my conspiracy theory here, I think that's the plan in place, baby, because everything they've done has kind of set them up to have this backup plan in place. So the ball's in your court, young man. What you think?
Now, I even wondered during this draft, would Stephen Ross tell Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel the 2026 picks are untouchable? You can't go into the 2026 capital to move up in this draft. Maybe to maintain the flexibility if he moves off, from this duo. Like, I want the next year's team to have all its draft picks. But I decided against that little conspiracy theory that I was tempted to think into, because I just don't see Stephen Ross as the owner that would do that. I would see him as the one that lets the football people do the football things, and then lets them do it to whatever need they must. And then he just facilitates, tell me what I have to pay, tell me where I should allot my money to allow you to put the football team together.
Plus, if you're willing to send a pick back next year,
yeah,
you have the power to bring one from next year into this year if you want to too. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So, and again, you had the power to create cap space, and you didn't.
right.
You could have been a player in free agency if you wanted to. But again, with the last 2 years, here's another caveat for everything.
Okay.
This year would have been another year that you would have been trying to make a run. But because the last 2 years did not work out, you have lost momentum, you've lost players, and you're now not as good as you were the last 2 years. If the last 2 years would have worked out and you would have gotten to the playoffs and won a game or two, this year would have been a year where guys would have taken adjusted pays, pay cuts, whatever, to stay there and keep it going. That's not the sentiment. Everybody wants out. People they don't believe in this guy, all that kind of shit. And they know it up above. They won't say it, but they know it, dude. So to me, there's a lot of this stuff that it looks to me like it's the groundwork. But the part that I'm intrigued with is, who made the decision on McDaniel? Like, how did this really come up? Because it just doesn't seem like it was a straight up, hey, I'm Chris Grier, I got this guy, Mike McDaniel, let's bring him in. That doesn't seem like it is. Because if you're moving forward, I think without him, you know what I mean? And by the way, that whole thing of you can use or can't use the picks, that conversation would not include Mike McDaniel. That would only include Garfinkel and Chris Grier. Okay.
Right.
So the way they've handled things tells me that there's only one guy on the hot seat, and that's Mike McDaniel. And because they know once you blow it all up, then everybody's a free agent and you'll lose Weaver. Well, if McDaniel screws it up during the season, which is kind of what they're expecting, you can put Weaver in as the interim and boom, you're off and running. And you've got him locked and loaded already, and you give him the team and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just saying, from what I hear with from Ramsey, he has no problem with Weaver or with Green. His problem is with the head coach. It's not with his defensive coordinator, and it's not with his general manager. So dude, all of this kind of just tells me that this season is kind of like, all right, Mike, here's your final straw, and we're moving on without you, and we got our guy in place in Weaver. So
all right, several things to comment on, and I'm going to try to keep my mind focused on all these as I transition with how many different ways it has gone. So as far as I'm trying to remember when Mike McDaniel was hired, I mean, I feel Chris Grier was certainly involved in that process. At least he made it sound like that whenever he spoke about him. Now, obviously, the whole organization wants to present a unified front in talking about a guy, but I felt like it was a collaborative effort where everyone was involved. So I think Chris Grier was also involved in it. And I think just remember going back to that time, it was, let's pull a 180 from what we just had, I think was the sentiment, was go as far away from what you just had, which was Brian Flores, who was then actively trying to sue the organization, was putting out a lawsuit, and claiming racist hiring practices across the NFL, and then saying that had something to do with his time with the Dolphins. So, and how he was fired, the way he was treated, how he was treated as a stepping stone coach to get through some rebuilding years, and they wanted him to intentionally tank and all this. So I think they just wanted a 180 from his personality to to someone entirely different, which Mike McDaniel certainly is that. So I think
And
that was definitely the mindset.
And they all do this all the time. All franchises do this all the time.
Right. Go offensive coach, defensive coach. Often, which is also what they did going from Adam Gase to Flores to McDaniel again, etc. So now with Weaver, you're right. This guy, he's a guy who's going to be a great head coaching candidate. He has now had head coaching interviews for 2 years running. A guy that a franchise that whenever a franchise moves from one coach to another and is hiring, that would be a great leader of men to go take that next step. So of course that was always the thing when you're talking about Mike McDaniel hiring a defensive coordinator, and then if things go awry, then it was a big question mark. Is would you then be hiring your potential replacement if a season goes wrong? And I don't think you were there mentally when he was getting that contract renewal, the extension going into 2024, back-to-back playoff appearances. Everyone was high on the whole tenure, so it wasn't there at that point. But sort of, you thought maybe Anthony Weaver would be a one-year rental and then find something elsewhere, but still hasn't happened for him as a head coach with another team. So yes, he is there for another year and could very well be one of the top head coaching candidates for next season, and you already have him in-house. And what was the other part? So the trade itself, which right, if you are a tandem on the hot seat, you don't go trade.
The trade with the entire moves of the offseason, free agents, like no cap space, like they didn't go after any money or anything like that. That's what I'm saying collectively. So go ahead.
Yeah. Which would seem for a tandem, if they are on the hot seat, then you wouldn't be trading this year's picks for next year's picks. If anything, you would try to do the opposite, and that's why I was wondering if Stephen Ross would block them from taking away any 2026 capital. But I mean, that's a move where if you are even if you are a GM on the hot seat, if you are not convicted about a player at that pick, then that's a move you make, because that you got the value, you won the trade value-wise, turning a fourth into a third. So objectively, even if you know you'll be there next year, do you know whether or not that's a trade you make unless you really wanted a guy. Now it's also the reverse trade that they made last year. I mean, almost exactly. Jalen Wright, getting him in the fourth round, trading in, and that's why you didn't have a third rounder this year. So it's sort of is it a fix of one that, I mean, you barely used Jalen Wright and the jury's still out on him, but you did waste a third rounder for this draft, and that was why you did not pick, or part of the reason why you did not pick for more than 100 selections when you traded up in the second round, didn't have your own third rounder, used the compensatory third rounder you had for that trade up, and then once you got to the fourth round, you traded out. That was why you kind of just missed out on the whole middle part of the draft. Part of it was trading into the fourth round last year to grab Jalen Wright.
Yeah, but that's the problem when you have a coach that's a scatterbrain. You need something, and then you get it for him, but yet he doesn't know how to implement it and get it involved. And so now you'll see Jalen Wright more involved this year, but it's like it's insanity. It's the whole Gesicki thing, and then Jonnu Smith, or big receivers or whatever. This guy has a problem. Just, he's a scatterbrain, dude. I mean, the running game's working, and he doesn't know how to stay with it at times. Like, what's wrong with you, bro? And look at the league. When you can run, it's a huge advantage, and it's just like, that's our. I think they finally realized it way too late, but I think they realized it. Like, I see Rajan goes, oh, everybody thinks Weaver will permanently replace McD by midseason. Yeah, that's the lazy thinking, because everybody thinks that he's going to get fired and you'll put Weaver because that's the obvious. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this is the plan. They already know that McDaniel is going to fail. They already got their plan in place. It's just they have to go through it now because they've already gave McDaniel an extension. So now after this whole thing fell apart this offseason, that Calais Campbell didn't want to be a part of this, that Holland wanted the hell out of here, and he was dying to get the hell out of here, that Jalen Ramsey doesn't want to be here, and others, as I've been saying for months. There's a bunch of people in that building. And I think it kind of built up in that building like, whoa, we got the wrong guy leading us. And I think now the whole thing has kind of shifted this whole offseason of, all right, well, we'll play the game, but we're not going to give all the cards to this guy because he mishandles the full deck every time we give it to him. And so, all right, well, we'll do what we can. And then if he can prove his worth, great. If he doesn't, we need to make sure we keep Weaver, because here's the other thing, dude. The Miami Dolphins are like the Miami Heat now, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. The Heat is now like the Dolphins. And I tried to tell Ira that now because, they keep writing every offseason about a whale and this and that. And I'm like, yo, bro, nobody wants to come here anymore. No players dying to come here to the Miami Heat. They're not dying to play for Pat Riley. They barely even know who he is nowadays. The rings on the table bullshit, none of that works. You either have to have the money, the cap space, or the picks. And guess what? They don't have the cap space or the picks, and they don't have sexy players. So they're not going anywhere, okay? It just is what it is. And I think that these guys, they are what they are right now at this point in time. They're not sexy. So the best candidates in football are never going to come here anymore. We had that run when you got Jimmy, you got Saban, and you got Parcells. After that, you're not really getting that established, that big name, that guy. He's probably going to choose an organization. Whatever the top candidate is not going to choose you anymore. They're going to choose the better organization. Now that you have Weaver, you may not have a better candidate. In fact, I think Weaver might be the best candidate I've seen in years, bro. I like him more than Cam Cameron or Flo or Sperano, rest in peace, or Philbin or whatever. I feel better about Weaver than I do most guys. And I think in that building, they're like, yeah, we need to make sure we pivot as quick as possible when the moment is right this year. I'm just saying.
On the part of the Dolphins, whether they're a sexy organization for someone to go to, let's not forget, if it were not for the Brian Flores lawsuit, it could have easily gone the way of having a Sean Payton, Tom Brady combination. While Brady still had something left in the tank. Remember, he won the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. So it could have, and Sean Payton has since taken another head coaching job with the Broncos, got them back into the playoffs. They're on the rise as well. Remember, they were going after that.
That's not Miami. That's Tom Brady and Sean Payton going, hey, we can go here and manipulate it for our purposes. That's not their sexiness or their culture or anything that they're coming here. They are the ones that will bring the culture and say, okay, we can get our deal done here quickly. They could do that wherever they wanted to go. And that's exactly, oh, no, I'll just go to Tampa and I'll go to Denver. You know what I mean? It's not a Miami thing. That was kind of more of a convenient thing. And again, that was a connection thing that the second owner, knew Brady and all that. So they put the meeting together. That doesn't mean that it was going to happen, because once other people get wind of it, then others will say, hey, no, we want you guys here. And you never know what happens then after that. So just because that meeting was going to happen or whatever, that doesn't mean that it really would have ended up happening. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it was a potential possibility. But
yeah, Peyton Manning also visited us too.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then I vaguely remember that. Well, what was he got scared away when he saw what was going on down here. But yeah. So, but then even then after that, there was the view, the perception, like, okay, this is on the rise. So I mean, it was a sexy place when Tyreek Hill wanted to work his way here. When Jalen Ramsey the next offseason did. When Teron Armstead signed free agency.
Admitted that that
just happened. Calais Campbell last year. It was just there. It's just now you are no longer on the rise that way. People, so it flips on you very quickly. Now, the notion of, okay, the organization knows this is going to be it for McDaniel. This is last season. He'll probably fail and got the plan in place. I wouldn't go that far. because you still have him in place for this season, and you're riding with it. I feel like you are trying to win, and you're trying to give him the trade up in that second round to give him the guard that he needs, give him the big wide receiver that he needs to complement the guys in his receiving core. Like, you're still trying to win with him now this year, and I think, believe me, it's just harder to do it. It's just going to be harder to do it with. Now, you won't have Jalen Ramsey on the other side. Calais Campbell wants out. It's going to be harder. The cards are more stacked against you, but you're going to have to prove, if you're worthy to stay longer, you'll have to do it with a more difficult situation in front of you.
Right. They're giving him a chance, but with limitations. It's not, you didn't have everything that you had the last 2 years to work with. And that's why I kind of look at it. It's not like they're saying, oh, yeah, he'll fail and we'll put Weaver in place. They're going to try, but they're not like going all full board because of the situation. And they can't keep putting money into something that is not really kosher right now. And they can't just fire him because they just gave him the contract. So they're going to give him a legitimate chance. And if he can prove himself, great. And if not, I just kind of feel like they're prepared to move on. Like they have planned this out almost. Like, whatever happens, if he coaches great, we're awesome. We're great. We're fantastic. If he screws up, we have plan B in place. That's kind of what I feel like.
We have to at least start thinking that in the back of your head, even if you don't put it out there, even within the organization, if you don't put it out there to others, you have to at least start thinking what would happen. What are the different ways that it could go in 2025, and what would happen in the event where, hey, you were already close to moving on in 2024. You had to put out the statement an hour after the finale because a lot of people were wondering. So then if it goes awry again, yes, what would happen? And you have a strong candidate in place. Now, of course, if all that transpires, and you would still open it up to who the other head coaching candidates in the next cycle are, but you already know at least there's one that is right there in your building.
And by the way, Tyreek admitted that he came to Miami purely out of money. Okay? Purely out of money because the tax situation in New York. And that's that was he said it in that conversation. So it wasn't really that we're not really that sexy ever. It's usually that we just give you great money and you come. That's usually what ends up happening. It's not that Ndamukong Suh thought we were great. No, they just paid him like a quarterback. So he came on down and he joined us. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of who we've been. But now at this point, you're not sexy at all. You're not going to get the best candidate next year if you just open it up. So I think now they kind of got all their ducks in order just in case if it goes awry. I think they pull the lever, they break glass and say, "Come on, Weaver, take over," and here we go. Because this offseason was not balls out, bro. There was nothing about this offseason that was balls out. We're trying to win. This was an offseason like, all right, we'll try to fill with what we got and there, but we're not going to open up more and try to create, which they could have, and they didn't. And I think that's because I think they finally faced the facts that this is probably the end of the road with this guy. I'm just saying.
Now they also did invest in the trenches, so maybe a change in philosophy of, all right, we need to really focus on this trench play. Highest price free agent contract was to a guard, James Daniels, traded up in the second round for another one in Jonas Savaiinaea. First round pick was used on a big defensive tackle in Kenneth Grant. Now they're leaving themselves a little exposed in the secondary. We'll see how that plays out. But there still should be another free agent signing to make there once they Jalen Ramsey.
Let me have some fun with that one. Okay. So sometimes you're a team that's going to depend on pass rush. So you drafted a guy that can penetrate and create problems. He's a defensive tackle that can hold people up too, but he's a guy that can actually penetrate and create issues. Yeah. Sealer can create issues for you also from that spot. Now you'll have your three pass rushers, Chop and the two other guys back.
Yeah.
So if you can become a team that can pressure the quarterback and you don't expose that secondary, which is what Josh, what's his name? When he
Boyer?
had Boyer. Remember a couple years back, he had nobody in the secondary. Everybody was injured. So the only way he would survive was blitzing and sending people because he did not want to leave his secondary too exposed out there. And it would work at times, actually. In fact, they would lose more of their games more on offense than because of their defense, if you really looked at it. So I think that's what they're trying to do. They'll try their best to be the best secondary they can possibly be, but I think what they did was they focused really on the front seven so they can be really impactful in that area. I love what they did in the draft, by the way. I really do. I like what they did.
Yeah. So that front seven starts to look really fierce. When you put a Zach Sealer combination with Kenneth Grant, who could contribute from day one, playing a position like defensive tackle, right? Yeah. So and that he's not just a run stuffer at his size, that he can seriously create an interior pass rush. And Zach Sealer has already proven he has that. 10 sack seasons, both of the past 2 years. No matter who you put with him, it was with Christian Wilkins. He had 10 sacks. Then you wondered last year, that was a big question. Could he do it again? When he doesn't have him, it was Calais Campbell, who could give you kind of 50% of the snaps, not play all the time like Wilkins did. He still put together 10 sacks, and that's rushing from the inside of the defensive line. So that's impressive. And then Chubb Robinson should take another stride. And then if Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are healthy, what a rotation you will have of pass rushers there, where maybe you could even have some packages where you get the three of them in there, and it's not just like two outside linebackers. You can have some third down packages where you put them all in there, and Jordan Brooks in the middle to lead that linebacker core, who I love there. So that's a strong front seven that you're going to have. And there's still going to be a free agent signing at cornerback, and I do like the safety they signed, Ifeatu Melifonwu, who again he's got the injury concerns, but if he's healthy, I like his versatility with how they can play him at safety in the box. He's a former corner, a converted corner, so you could go put him on the boundary, play the nickel, blitz if you need to. He could be that new Swiss Army knife, ultimate chess piece that Anthony Weaver will be missing with Jalen Ramsey. Obviously not to the level of Jalen Ramsey, but he's a guy who can do all those different things. So that might be the one who now, in conjunction with Kader Kohu, who's also versatile, they start to move around.
What do you got going on in the Sentinel so folks can check you out?
Yeah, wrapping up everything draft-wise, and then since the cornerback position was largely ignored to start the draft, and then he picked one into the fifth rounder. Obviously, we know the secondary free agent market post-draft is the big focus. So I did put out just yesterday a listing the guys who are the remaining free agents and who could be some of those candidates as far as a cornerback free agent signing.
All right. Follow him on Twitter at David Furones _ and catch his work there at the South Florida Sun Sentinel. As always, my brother, thank you. We will catch up on Friday.
Sir, sounds good.
Let's hope to have some free agent signings by then. All right, man. Thank you. Welt Rheaume, Jeff Welt and Daniel Rheaume. Nobody works harder for you than Jeff and Dan. Bankruptcy, homeowner property damage, condo damage, criminal defense, business owner claims, commercial litigation, personal injury, man. Call them 954-966-4646. A bunch of our listeners over the years have called, and they are in much better shape. They took care of us also, brought Progressive to their knees. So if you're dealing with any of these issues right now, call Jeff Welt and Daniel Rheaume. And by the way, the consultation is completely free. So if you want to find out if you have a case or not, it's all free. A conversation, you'll get that answer, and then you'll get the best tackles in the business, baby. Jeff Welt and Daniel Rheaume, 954-966-4646.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.